Now, one of the big changes facing the global transportation industry is electrification. Big corporations and car manufacturers are going electric and ditching the combustion engine. Well, just this week, Toyota said it will have an electrified or hybrid version of all vehicles by 2025. But Amnesty International has shone a light on the dark side of this revolution. Cobalt is one of the key ingredients added in electric batteries. And if we talk about cobalt, we have to talk about the Democratic Republic of Congo, the world's leading source of the compound. Now, Amnesty says children as young as 7 work in dangerous conditions in DRC cobalt mines. The DRC could benefit from electric cars the same way Saudi Arabia did from oil. However, mining is pretty much unregulated there, and the country continues to struggle with corruption and warlords. Well, joining me from Sydney is Gavin Wendt. Gavin is the founding director and senior resource analyst at Australia-based Mine Life. Good to have you with us. So there's a lot to talk about. So let's focus, if we could, on one material like cobalt. How much regulation is there of ethical issues when it comes to the mining of this important material that's necessary in the manufacturing of electric cars?
Well, at the present time, you'd have to say that there isn't a lot of regulation around the mining of cobalt. You have to understand that about half of the world's current cobalt reserves are located within the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa, the DRC, and they account for about 54% of the cobalt that's mined each year internationally. And at the present time, the industry over there is not very well regulated. You could probably say that a lot of the cobalt that's mined is generated from illegally operated mines that employ almost slave labor, if you like, underage workers, illiterate workers, workers that don't get paid very much money. We should put it that way. And they're controlled by warlords, and the industry is appallingly run. Now, the balance of the production that comes out of the DRC is controlled by the Chinese, and the DRC government would very much like more of that cobalt to be upgraded in the country, processed. But at the present time, a lot of that cobalt is simply exported back to China for further value adding. So it's a very precarious situation to have so much production coming out of one of the poorest, least well-governed countries in the world today.
That's a bit shocking, Gavin. To what extent are car manufacturers aware of that? Explain to us how the actual supply chain works.
Well, very much so. So car manufacturers are dependent on, at least car manufacturers that are looking at going down the electric vehicle route. They are looking to source batteries from a specialist producer. So, for example, someone like a Panasonic or whatever it might be. Now, currently, a group like Tesla, the average battery that's used in their vehicles currently weighs about 85 kilograms. About 8 kilograms of that is comprised of cobalt. And the forecasts are that we're probably going to need about 3 times as much cobalt as is currently mined in the world within about 2 decades to satisfy electric vehicle demand worldwide. Now, vehicle manufacturers like Volkswagen, one of the biggest manufacturers in the world, is very keen to not only source cobalt, but they've publicly stated that one of their major priorities is to source ethically derived cobalt. So that means that they are looking outside of the DRC to try and source their cobalt, places like North America, places like Australia, for example.
So if we want to make the supply chain ethical, is the only way to do that to look outside of the DRC, or is there a way to make the supply chain globally ethical? I mean, what have we learned about the whole controversy over blood diamonds and diamonds mined in some of the conflict places you've been talking about?
You probably have to say that we haven't learned a lot. But certainly in the case of vehicle manufacturers, they have a reputation to protect. particularly some of the larger manufacturers, such as Volkswagen, such as Toyota, that have been involved in scandals, of course, internationally over recent times. We're seeing more and more consumer pressure. We're seeing more and more sociological pressure from society to ensure that these commodities are ethically sourced. Now, given the estimated growth in cobalt demand, I think we're looking at something like about 9,000% growth in demand over the next 2 decades. A very big issue is going to be where this cobalt will come from, and hence companies are looking to source cobalt outside of the DRC as much as possible in order to ensure that this material is produced ethically.
If we're going to see that sort of demand explode, as you're sort of painting the picture there, are we going to see an even more chronic shortage of cobalt supplies in the world market? And what does that ultimately mean for the future of electric cars?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the major drawbacks for electric cars at the present time is the sourcing of the 4 key materials that are involved in their manufacture. We're looking at things like lithium and graphite and cobalt, for example, some of the key materials. And because of the prices of those key materials have been rising so quickly, in order to make electric vehicles economic for purchasers, governments have had to step in and subsidize them to this point. Now, that's not something that governments are going to want to do in perpetuity. So what we need to see is the cost of energy production come down. And there have been estimates that have suggested that currently we're looking at about $430 per kilowatt hour. That's the current cost. There are forecasts that over the next 10 years, that's going to come down to somewhere around about $100 per kilowatt hour. Now, I think that's a key figure, because at around about $100 per kilowatt hour, in my view, that's where electric vehicles start to make sense. Consumers can start to buy with confidence, knowing that the costs are reasonable. But until you reach that point, it's a major stumbling block. And so, the essence of what we're talking about here is the commodities themselves have to come down in price. That automatically means that more needs to be found. But in the case of cobalt, of course, we're talking about potential substitution. And I think that's another aspect that we could look at, actually reducing the amount of cobalt that's actually currently consumed in these typical batteries.
Well, it's been great talking to you. Thanks so much for that, Gavin.
Thank you. A pleasure.